Dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to welcome all of you here this beautiful Sunday afternoon. As we gather here today, I'd like to take a verse written by Sant Rajinder Singh Maharaj, which talks about consciousness. It talks about good and bad that we think is happening in our lives, and which kind of shows us how can we deal with our situation, live in a world in which there's a lot of turmoil. And when we try to understand the verse, in the times that we're living through today, it's as appropriate today as it was then. So that's very interesting when you read the writings of the saints. What they've written maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago, thousands of years ago, was as applicable to those times as it is today, because the message that they give is universal. The message that they give is everlasting, and irrespective of where the message is given or when the message is given, the message, if well understood, can help each and every one of us as we pass through life, so that we can get to states in which we can lead our lives in the best possible of manners. We all feel this turmoil, this stress and strain are words that have become so common that as I travel all around the globe and have an opportunity to go to many different countries and meet people of various cultures, and something very interesting that I find is, as an example, I traveled in India a lot, and as I was traveling a few years ago, and I have a chance to meet thousands of people. So I was in an area where the people who I was meeting would all be talking in the Hindi language. And since Hindi is prevalent there, most of the people were not familiar with English, and they're speaking Hindi. So, as I'm traveling and I'm reading in the roads, have a chance, and people have a chance to say something. And so, this one lady in Hindi said that she was in a lot of stress. So I said, do you understand what the word stress means? Irrespective whether she knew the language or not, she knew stress means stress. It's very interesting. I said, "Hey, do you know what this means?" So, irrespective of whatever language of the world you're in, the turmoil is there. Okay? And the turmoil creates difficulties. And those difficulties are felt by people all around the globe. And so we all are trying to find peace. We all are trying to be calm. We're trying to be in harmony with our surroundings. And if we understand this verse of Sant Rajinder Singh Maharaj, this is a very deep meaning as to why good things happen and bad things happen, and how is our consciousness affected by it. So Sant Rajinder Singh Maharaj here is saying, he says, "Daure hazir mein pisa jata hai insa ka zamir." Daure hazir is the present time. So he's saying, Daure hazir mein pisa jata hai insa ka zamir. Zamir is consciousness, so of the human being. And then he's saying, "Khair o shar mein wo kashakash si aaya hai dost." कि खैर व शर में वो कशाकश सी आया है those. And so khair-o-shar is like good or evil, and kashakash is like a tug of war. So when we translate this into English, it comes as it is a tug of war between good and evil, O friend. It is a tug of war between good and evil, O friend. He's talking about life. Our conscience is being crushed in the present times. Now, even though he wrote many years ago, we find if we look back at history, there's always been some kind of turmoil going on someplace. If we look back at our own lives, there have been ups and downs, and some turmoil here, some turmoil there. So Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj here, first he's talking, there's a tug of war between good and evil. Now, to truly understand what he's trying to tell us is that look at yourself and look at the world in which you live. This world at this time has about 8 billion of people living. Okay. Each one is what comprises of the human beings who live in this world. Now, as one in the human body, we start to think of us as being the body. This is what most people feel that they are. But then, when you start to think of ourselves, it's not on the body. In the body is our soul, which gives it life, which is our real self, and in the body is our mind, which is also living there and which is also connecting us with the activities of the world outside. Now, the soul is a part of God, and so being a part of God is full of the love and light of God. So the soul is truthful, the soul is blissful, the soul wants to help and give. But the purpose of the soul, when it is in the human body, is to find its oneness with God. So the soul is focused on God. And that's its whole purpose. That the soul which has been transmigrating from one existence to another now has an opportunity to be in the human frame, okay, in which God has provided all the faculties for us to know God. So now our soul, when it comes in the human body, it realizes now it has an opportunity to know God. And so it wants to focus all of its attention on God. Okay. The mind, which is also in the body, is full of desires. The mind wants this thing from this world, the mind wants that thing from this world. So the mind is taking us and focusing us in the world outside. Now, what happens is, since the mind is full of desires, if its desire is not fulfilled, it gets very angry. It gets to a state where it starts to think, hey, I have a desire and I have every right to have my desire fulfilled. And so the ego of the person starts to go up. So they feel, hey, I deserve this thing. So the ego comes into play. When you don't get what you desire, then anger comes in. If you get one thing that you want another. So greed comes into play. And when you get greedy, then if you can't get your things through regular means, you become deceitful. You want to get it somehow. And so you hear cases after cases of people who are deceiving the children are deceiving their parents, They want them to go out and get their homes and their names. Their brothers and sisters are deceiving everyone, and friends are deceiving others. And there's a lot of difficulties that come in because the mind wants its desire fulfilled, and they're not getting fulfilled. And so the mind is what is bringing turmoil into our life. The mind is what is bringing evil into our life. Okay? The mind is what puts us in all kinds of spirals which are downward. Now, the soul wants to have goodness. The soul wants to be with God. The soul wants to have those characters come out. Okay? So we also have in us our conscience. The conscience is the small voice that comes out once in a while. And the conscience would tell us, this is not right to do. Even though the mind wants us to do something, our conscience come into play and say, this is not right. And let's say you have a brother and a sister, and you got a cookie jar, and the brother and sister are supposed to eat cookies when the parents tell them. But if one of them wants to get a cookie when they're not supposed to, generally they'll take it because the mind is so powerful. But sometimes conscience says, no, I should not take it. It's not right. So that's what conscience is. Now, the conscience is coming into our lives because of our soul. Because our soul is always wanting us to do the right thing. So anytime we are doing something which is drastically going to be wrong, then our conscience comes into play and says, no, this should not be done. And so the outer expression of a conscience is our attention. Our attention, when it's controlled or when it's going through what the soul wants, then our attention goes towards good. It goes toward God. It's fulfilling the very purpose for which we came into this world. But if our attention is being pulled by the desires which are coming from the mind, then our attention goes into activities of the world. Let's say our mind says, oh, I need to go and travel. Yeah? I should see what is happening in this part of the world. Or this part is supposed to be very beautiful. Let me take a trip there. Then we make arrangements, so we do that stuff. Okay? But if our attention is being controlled by the soul, so when our attention is controlled by the soul, it'll say, oh, let me go on the spiritual journey. Let me take a journey from the physical to the astral, and maybe I'll go to the causal. And maybe if everything's good, I'll end up in the super causal, and God's grace get to such kind. Oh, let me go on that journey. So that's the difference of where your attention is being controlled. Okay? All the goodness is coming from whatever is coming from the soul. Evil is coming from what is coming from the mind. So Sant Singh Ji Maharaj gave a very beautiful, simple line for us to understand what is good and what is bad. He said, everything that takes you towards God is good, and anything that takes you away from God is bad. Because the whole purpose of us being in this human body is to have our soul get off the wheel of transmigration and merge back in God. Okay. So, when you start to look at this verse, then you understand that it is a tug of war between good and evil. It is a tug of war because the soul wants to do good, the soul wants to be with God, the soul wants to do everything that is going to be helpful. The mind wants us distracted into the world. The mind wants its desires to be fulfilled. So it's going to take us away from God and focus our attention in the world. So there's always a tug of war. And in a tug of war, for those of you, and I saw many of you would have tug of wars when you were younger, or we see a lot of young kids out here. In a tug of war, sometimes one side pulls and sometimes the other side pulls. And then one side pulls, another side pulls, and one side pulls, another side, and finally one side totally pulls, and they are the winners. So Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj saying, this life that we are leading, in the existence that we have in the human body, there's a tug of war. There's goodness coming from the soul, which is taking our attention towards God, which wants us to reach the goal. There's also the violence of the mind, which is dragging our attention into the world outside. So the soul is pulling us towards God, and the mind is pulling us towards the world. So there's tug of war going. Sometimes this thing gets more, we get in a mood, we say, okay, for this month, I am going to be very spiritual. Okay. Boy, I'm gonna meditate for like 4.5 hours every day. And this whole month I'm going to do that. And so we get very spiritual. So we got to pull to the, towards God. And then there are other times when things happen and we get enamored by, there's a new gadget which is out there in the market. No, I need to get it. So as soon as we get it, first we need to understand how to use it, and then we get to use it, and all of the time spend in that direction. And so then those are the pulls which are coming, which are taking us away. So there's this tug of war going on all the time. Okay? And in this tug of war, what is happening? Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj is saying that because of the tug of war, our conscience is being crushed in the present times. Okay? Now what is happening is, every time the mind is trying to fulfill its desires, our consciousness, through our attention, is going into the world outside. Okay? So this little voice that comes in, which says we should be doing the right things. Many times what happens, if these two brothers and sisters I just talked about, and in the beginning, one of them says, I'm not going to eat because I want to share. And then the desire of the cookie or the chocolate or whatever is there in the jar, it gets so much, they say, oh, it's okay, let me eat one. I mean, there's so many, who's going to know what I ate? So you sneak one out. As soon as you sneak one out, you're going to sneak 8 or 10 out. Cannot stop anymore. Our conscience is broken already, it's crushed, it's gone. That's what Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj is talking about. Our conscience, which wanted to do good, is so many times been defiled by the mind, which is trying to fulfill its desire, that pretty soon our conscience is gone. And we take things which are not correct to be okay. We said this is okay because our mind has overpowered our soul. Now if your conscience is crushed, then the mind will do anything it wants. So we need to strengthen our conscience. So how do we strengthen our conscience to go in the right direction? We need to meditate. We need to connect with the divine power within. We need to find the joys within, because as we find the joys within, and if those joys to us are more fulfilling than anything of the world outside, then our soul gets strong. And even if the mind desires, say, no, hey, I'm having more fun, I'm more happy, I'm more joyous meditating. It's a story about Rabia Basri. The springtime came in, this is from the old times, and she used to live in a hut, and so all her friends are calling her to come out of the hut and play with them because it's springtime, the weather's very nice, all the flowers are blooming, it's a beautiful time of the year, so they're trying to call her, and she's not coming. And then they're asking a lot of times, and then she responds. She says, I am sitting here in meditation, I am experiencing so much bliss that I have no desire to come out. So it's only when we find that blissful state within, which will not happen by listening to a sermon, which will not happen by reading a book, it'll happen by sitting in silence. The will of the Lord always unfolds when we are in silence. Because whenever there's activity on the outside, then our attention is going to that activity, so we're not getting total attention in that arena. So whenever there's an outside distraction, we will not be able to gain from what is within ourselves. So our total attention needs to be on the inside. So we need to get to this desireless state. Desires fructify only when you have wishes. That's a, and the wishes are coming through thoughts. This is why as we meditate, we are asked to get to a state of no thoughts. But the thoughts are the ones which will take our attention to the world outside. It starts from the thought, gets to words, and it becomes into deeds. So the source is the mind, and the mind is sending thoughts to us which are full of desires to get to on the world outside. So we need to get into a state where we put the mind towards God, and that's what Simran is. Simran is to have the mind be focused on God so that we are in a state which will be quiet. There's no thoughts in there, nothing distracting us. So then our attention can be focused towards God. God is within us through His primary two manifestations, the light and the sound of God. They're always within us. So as soon as we get to that state where our attention can focus on God, we connect with the light or the sound. And as we connect with the divine power of light and sound of God, then it gives us more energy. It gives us more strength to the soul, and the soul gets more powerful. And the soul then, through our consciousness, is going to be helping us anytime the mind is coming to draw us out. The soul, through our attention, will bring us back towards God. And so Sant Rajinder Singh Maharaj is trying to explain this whole scene to us. If we only look on the upside and read, and then we say there's a tug of war between good and bad, we do good things, we do bad things, we could look at it from that point of view, and that our conscience is crushed. Why is crushed, we won't understand. But if you do understand what he's trying to tell us is spiritually how our life is being run. And how can we get to a state where we don't let our conscience to be crushed? Because there's so much happening into day-to-day activities. I mean, we think so much happening today. I mean, they must think at that time so much happening their time, and their forefathers must think so much happening their lifetime. Because mind is working overtime all through the ages. Okay? Its home is in the third plane. And so, as we try to understand this verse, then we will be able to get to a state where we realize that goodness will come into our system only when we are getting closer and closer to God. We have an opportunity to get closer to God. The animals don't, the fish don't, but we do. Because we got the single eye or the third eye, or the Shiv Netra, the Swadvar. So we have a gateway which can open into the inner spiritual regions. Okay? That's only in the human beings. This is why the human beings are called the roof and crown of all creation. And the more we can focus our attention here, through the help and guidance of our spiritual master, then we can be uplifted in the regions beyond. But out of the 24 hours, we have to find some time ourselves. If all of our time goes into just the activities of the world, taking care of the body, just fulfilling the desires of the mind, then this time will go away. And when we find time for our spiritual practices regularly on a daily basis, then we'll find that the growth in the spiritual arena comes too. Because our spiritual journey gets enhanced with time. And as it gets enhanced, we get deeper experiences of the revelations of the Lord. And as we get those deeper experiences, then we get more happiness and joy, because the closer we find ourselves to God, the happier we are, the more peaceful we are, the more calmer we are. So Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj is telling us, hey, don't let your conscience be crushed. The mind is going to try to crush it. We need to keep our consciousness, we need to realize what is right for us, and then we need to put in an effort to strengthen what is right and do what is right. And when we do that, then we'll definitely be able to get to our goals. Then we'll find the time to meditate, we'll find the time to do this Simran during the day, we'll find the time to focus our attention on God as much as we can, and then we'll be able to take steps going towards our goal. So let us just meditate for a few minutes, because there's nothing better than meditation. Close our eyes very gently, just like we close them when we go to sleep. Our eyeballs should be straight, focus 8 to 10 inches in front of us. And as we close our eyes, those of us who have been initiated in the mysteries of the beyond, let's do our Simran. And those of us who are new here, please repeat any name of God that you feel comfortable with. This repetition of God's name should be done mentally and not out loud. So I pray to God Almighty and to the three great spiritual masters of the past century, Hazur Baba Sawan Singh Ji Maharaj, Param Sant Kripal Singh Ji Maharaj, and Dayal Purush Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj, to help each and every one of us connect with the divine power within and to experience the divine light in its effulgence. So we'll be sitting for a few minutes. I'll be taking out of this meditative state, and my best wishes are with each and every one of you. Please leave off.